Good morning, truth sleuths and horror hounds. I'm your host, True Horror Stories, and we are back once again to talk about horror movies and the history of horror cinema. Today, I've actually got a buddy of mine to come on and co-host with me. So, I'm gonna go ahead and bring him in. You guys probably already know him. I've done collabs with him. We've done some back and forth stuff on Twitter. You know him as Nox Archive. How you doing, Nox?
Got coffee. I'm happy.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Can everybody hear him all right? I just want to make sure that the OBS isn't deciding it wants to be an absolute buttwad.
Or as they say in England, an absolute bellend.
Yes, that. Awesome. Hey, Kitten's here. Hey, Cherry. Hey, Rock and Ruin. I know I already said hi to Rock and Ruin earlier.
Ken and I had an interesting conversation about torches and welders.
Kitten's an interesting woman. I'm not surprised.
Yes.
She's my resident MILF.
I'm married.
Yeah, I'm married too, but I can look. I've got eyes. I can look at the new cars. I just can't take them for a test drive. And I love me some classic cars. Okay.
But
Yeah, but yeah, no, I'm an innocent flirt when it comes to Kitten. I flirt with all the boxed wine babes, but yeah. She's one.
Which I have to say this. For some reason, somebody, and I can't remember if it was Fine or somebody else, is like, "Oh, by the way, you're now the box wine bitch's pet fox."
Who said that?
I think it was Fine who said it, but Kitten was like, "Yep, just accept your fate."
Well, if Kitten says so, then yeah, she.
It was either Kitten or Nix who said it. I can't remember.
Well, if one of the box wine babes has christened it as such, then yes, we're gonna go with that.
I do not play fetch. I'm just warning you.
Speaking of playing fetch, so we did do a collab this week that just came out, right? Was it this week or was it last week?
It was Friday.
Friday, okay, so it was like 2 days ago. I had a lot of fun on that. That was really funny. Especially because I got to harken back to me making fun of myself as calling myself a furry. I knew that was gonna be a joke as soon as I had the commissions done by Kat. And then I decided, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna call myself that first and run with it before anybody else can to take the fun away, for the most part. Because it really doesn't bother me when I get called that, even though I wouldn't consider myself one. I just liked the idea because it was the 80s, and the 80s was prevalent for absolute, like, werewolf monster kind of movies. So I wanted to go with that, and I was like, ooh, I can be a werewolf eating popcorn. And she ran with that, and here we are. Here we are with that. So
my design came from the fact that me and Kat were talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and stuff like that, and I always been a fan of cartoons, so I was like, I'm just gonna make myself a cartoon.
Nice. Hey, we got two of the box wine babes in here. We got Jessica and Kitten. My lovelies. I have my favorite MILF and my eventual MILF number 2. Happy days. Love my
nice.
MILFs. Yeah. We need to talk at some point, me and the girls, and figure out exactly what we're gonna do when we come back, or when we're gonna come back. Because we've got people that want us to come back and talk shit like we did a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. I don't remember when the last time we did one of those was, but yeah. But initially we were going to talk about just the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, and then pop. I have too much problems with electrical issues and not having power, and then ends up being a little bit bigger than we had initially expected. But I don't think that you seem to be up to it and talk about the 50s instead of just the 60s and the 70s, and we got plenty of stuff to talk about.
It's because I actually have a degree in cinema studies.
Yeah, you were telling me about that, and then I know we're gonna get into a specific person on your end that you're just gonna lose your mind about, and then I'll let you run with it for a bit. But why don't we
Yeah, you're gonna have to get the spray bottle ready for that one.
I'll
though.
get the spray bottle and I'll get the leash ready. I'll get everything, the leash and the harness. So when we last left off, we were in a time period where cinema was heavily stigmatized, especially horror cinema, because there were some laws that came out that made it very difficult for targeted audiences to get these movies, which meant that cinemas weren't making money, production companies weren't making money. Ergo, movies are going to be very low budget. And we'll start with one of the categories that really inspired a lot of the particular genres that came out of the 50s, and that's alien invasions or sci-fi. Or just say sci-fi in general. And you'll notice that there's like 3 different categories that comes into this. It's alien invasions, obviously. It Came from Outer Space, Thing from Another World, which is the first movie we'll talk about in a second. We've got The Unwitting Mutation, and then we've got the scientist that fucks with science a little too much and finds out. Those were the 3 big ones that came out when it came to the sci-fi. There was some other stuff that was in there that in the 50s that stuck with the older kind of style of movie making and storytelling when it came to horror cinema, but the sci-fi genre was massive. And I think the first movie that came out that really pushed that was Thing from Another World, which came out in 1951 and was directed by Christian Niebe and Howard Hawks. This particular movie was based on Who Goes There by John W. Campbell in 1983, which is another movie, and has some very 50s hallmarks and Hawksian hallmarks that are very prevalent within this particular genre. You see a lot of this cultural manliness where all the men had to be manly men and all the women had to follow them, and you had to be all over the place. You had to be hands-on. You had to be the dude that every guy wanted to be and the dude that every woman wanted to fuck. Literally the biggest character traits you'll see with a lot of the characters in these particular films. The dialogue is really fast. It overlaps each other. Like, people will talk over each other a lot. And there's a lot of wisecracking that goes on with that as well. Teamwork is a huge thing with these particular movies. There's a mission, and we have to do this to get to the mission. It needs to get done. And that's what you see with the characters that are on the protagonist and antagonist side in some sense. But when it comes to the 50s, there's something a little bit different with it. And really, you notice that a lot of the storytelling and most of what projects the story or pushes it to action is pervasive paranoia. It's a lot of the unknown is more the enemy than these aliens in some cases. It's kind of interesting. But I think what really pushed that to the audience was a particular quote from this movie that says, "Keep watching the skies." And this is around the time when people really started to get worried about UFOs and anything of the unknown coming and taking over the way of life that we have. And that continues throughout the 50s.
And then it came out in 1950, which was the height of the Red Scare.
Yep, that's part of it. A lot of these movies have an underlying worry of communism, and it just kind of fuels the fire, fans the flames, if you will, when it comes to, you know, politics. And I still think it's the same way today, just in a different sense. I won't get too into it because politics can, you know, that'll cause some shit, and we really don't need it, but...
Politics is very divisive. The best thing to do is, if you want to be friends with somebody, avoid politics and religion.
Yep, agreed. The next big movie to come out that's similar to this is It Came From Outer Space by Jack Arnold. Jack Arnold did a lot of these movies that I'll talk about, if I'm not mistaken, but I think he is involved in a lot of them. This one in particular is based on an unpublished story by Ray Bradbury called The Meteor. It basically has aliens are just friendly travelers that ended up stuck with a flat tire on Earth. And the entirety of it is just people being freaked the fuck out because there's something alien around and we don't know what it is, we don't know what it's gonna do, and all the humankind is dumb. In most senses. We will lose our sense of logic if we are afraid of something. Especially something we don't know what the problem is. And that's basically the antagonist. It's the humans, it's not the aliens in this case. But what's really notable about this movie is it's the first 3D production that Universal ever put out. So the first 3D movie from Universal Studios. And that's huge. Because that becomes some sort of, although 3D isn't, you know, I mean, I've seen a few 3D movies in my time, but they're not that popular. But it does start a little bit of a trend from the, you know, 50s all the way until like the 70s, and then it just kind of dies off for a little bit.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think the reason why it died off is because the glasses were way too goofy at the time, because you have one red and one blue.
That's true.
And they just look really horrible.
Yeah, they looked really horrible in general, but, I mean, there's not a whole lot you could have done about it, unfortunately. Because at the time, they didn't have the kind of technology that we have now that makes them not as, like, janky looking. And it was the 80s, so I guess it wasn't as bad, but they just kind of... It just kind of wasn't as prevalent. It wasn't as, it wasn't prevalent, and it was just kind of weird. I mean, it got worse when they made the gimmicks with those things.
Yeah. 3D was very popular in the 50s, though, because they actually had comic books and a lot of different things with those 3D glasses, and it's just like, why do you want these things?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I guess it was just a gimmick to try and get people butts in seats. And in that time, they used a lot of gimmicks to try and get butts in seats because of, you know, the legal situation, which obviously isn't a problem now. Movies is still a huge commodity and a huge moneymaker for, you know, worldwide anything. We get another one with Invaders from Mars in 1953 by William Cameron Menzies. This movie is important because it basically invented the role of the film production designer. They didn't have that at the time or previous to that. So when that role came into play, it was pretty groundbreaking. This particular movie, the story came to the writer, kind of like how Frankenstein came to Mary Shelley. It was in a nightmare. And that's pretty, I think a lot of nightmares can be extremely detailed and give a lot of, you know, insight into a lot of different things within the human subconscious. And in particular, this one is basically a young boy sees a UFO landing and suddenly starts seeing all of the adults around him being turned into these evil, beastly people that are just cruel. And it's kind of like a metaphor for the confusion you have as a kid when you're learning about the world, and the level of anxiety that you experience when you're growing up. It's really, it encapsulates that. And what's even worse is, worse and good in the case of this movie, is it leaves itself up to being open-ended. So you're wondering whether anything that happened was real or was it a figment of the kid's imagination. And that's a really good way to keep a story, if it's well done, in the minds of the audience.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot when it comes to the 50s. There's going to be a lot of this whole entire questioning if what the person or the protagonist, sorry, is actually going through is real, or if it's a figment of their imagination or a dream. It's prevalent in a lot of films that come later on.
Yeah, it's really prevalent. I mean, it's done well, and sometimes it's not done well. It's a mixed bag. It's a very big mixed bag. Hey Revcast, hey Cherry, hi Mari, welcome guys. Thank you for stopping by. I really appreciate it. After that, we have a movie that basically influenced an entire subgenre, and that's Beast from 2000 Fathoms in 1953 by Ray Harryhausen. Harryhausen actually studied with Willis O'Brien, the guy that did King Kong. And that movie inspired this particular one. But instead of having a creature that came from the forest or an island, we have one that comes from the ocean, which you could say is just as unknown to us as the skies. A lot of UFO activity happens from the ocean.
Yeah, but they have a different designation. I can't remember what it's called. It's something like unidentified submerged object.
Something like that, yeah. USO and UFOs, I don't know, but they're very similar in that it's unidentified. We don't know what it is, and we don't know everything that's in the ocean. We still don't. We find new species deeper and deeper in the ocean every year. It's crazy. And this one was also pretty prevalent because it popularized stop motion monsters, and that's where we really see that come into play. And it obviously influenced a very particular movie monster that we'll talk about in a very short time. We literally have 2 more movies to talk about before we get to this particular one, so we'll hold our tongue a little bit when it comes to that. Kitten says we know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the ocean. Yes, exactly, Kitten, exactly.
Yes, and the moon is made of cheese.
Yes, it's made of fucking cheese. Just don't know what kind of cheese. I'm curious about that. I wonder what kind of cheese it is. Say spider crabs are cool. Yes, they're very cool, and they're kind of creepy.
Yeah, it's called Ruin actually pointed out it's called unidentified submerged objects.
Yeah, I see that. Later called, submerged objects. Yeah, but I mean they're in the same category because we see, they'll show multiple stories about things coming out of the ocean and flying around easy. But the first of the 2 movies that we'll talk about, I particularly love, and I've seen hundreds of times, not hundreds, but dozens of times at least. House of Wax by Andre de Toth.
Yeah. Just see if I can actually. All the younger people, Vincent Price is in it, and Vincent Price is the guy who does the ending of the Thriller video.
He is the narrator in Thriller, yes. He is.
And he was awesome.
The Prince of Darkness. Fuck Ozzy. No, it's not Ozzy Osbourne that's the Prince of Darkness. It's Vincent Price. It forever will be. And House of Wax is the movie that cemented him as a legend in the horror movie genre. He was this good-looking, intelligent man that was well-spoken, and he could do any. He's one of those actors who could do anything. He didn't start with horror. He started with as a leading man in, dramas and period pieces before he did this. And this is when he took on a role of a maniacal man looking for revenge, and it was just fantastic. I know it's a remake of The Mystery of the Wax Museum, which I talked about in the last stream that I did on this. But it was very inventive in this way because it was made with a particular cinema experience in mind. It was one of those movies where that was supposed to be like 4D production in certain cinemas, where basically you would feel something touching your leg during certain parts of the movie. Your chair would move or vibrate. It was supposed to be this full-blown experience, and I wish I was there in that time period to experience that. That would have been fantastic. But Vincent Price's performance alone is phenomenal, and there's several other movies in here that are with him in it that we'll talk about once we get to those necessarily. But this is the first one that really brought Vincent Price into the fold as the Prince of Darkness and as the man we know him of today.
I can't remember if it's this one or a different one I'm thinking of, but isn't this one the one with the revenge story, or am I thinking of a different movie?
This one has a revenge story in it, yeah.
Okay. I just had to make sure that I was on the right
path. Multiple of them are, in a sense, I guess, but this one is definitely a revenge story, yeah. Because, I mean, basically, this is the one where the Wax Museum guy has his shit burned down. He's irreparably damaged by the burns, and he has to remake his stuff from scratch, kills the guy. I'm not going to get into it, but he does kill the guy that burns his Wax Museum down.
Yeah, that's what, because I remember they did a remake of it that was horrible, and
Yes.
I was like,
with Paris Hilton and what the fuck is his name? The guy that was in Cinderella's Story. I don't remember his name, but I'm pretty sure somebody in the chat will know.
yeah, and you're probably going to get to that when you talk about modern movies, but
eventually, yeah. Not. I'll have lots to say about modern movies. Holy shit. Hey Berta Paula, hey Renegator66, welcome. 8mm. I've heard it rings a bell, but I don't remember exactly what movie that is.
I remember a movie called 8mm that dealt with snuff films, but that was in the 90s.
That's probably what he's talking about. Katarina De La Rosa, sorry late comment, I was listening, but not near my phone. There's been a lot of UFO acting above Lake Superior, her in, and then I think Minnesota Duluth is attached to Lake Superior, and there's been a bunch of sightings. Nice. Yeah, there's a lot of places where there's a lot of activity, and it's really interesting. But
one day I'll probably do a video on UFOs, but not now.
Yeah, I'll eventually get to that myself. Like, there's a whole conspiracy about a lot of that stuff, but maybe eventually I'll get to it. The next movie is Creature from the Black Lagoon by Jack Arnold. Yeah, I was right. He's in a lot of these. This one, it's not one of my favorites, but it's technically associated with the Universal movie monsters. I think it's not a part of the initial Universal movie monsters. I think it's a little bit in its own category because we'd already talked about how badly that genre kind of flopped. Originally in the 40s, or the 30s and the 40s, it flopped after a while, and that kind of died out. So I don't necessarily consider it part of that, but
I've never seen Creature from the Black Lagoon. I know my
haven't.
dad did when he was a kid because he was born in 1950 and he was like 4 years old when it came out, and for some reason he remembers it. But
Well, apparently, even though like the swamp creature is the main antagonist, the swamp creature's not really that scary looking, and it's kind of. I mean, the book that I'm reading that I've shared with you, Lost in Darkness, um, it describes it as a nerdy swamp creature that never gets the girl. It it's not
that's kind of funny.
it's not the scariest thing in the world, but somehow it was scary enough to have like two or three other movies. Um, but really, if you want to say the antagonist is anything, it's one of the characters that's a biologist that wants to capture the swamp creature and use it for his own gain. Thank you for stopping by, Renegator. Have a good one. And then we come to the movie that everybody knows of, that basically started the entire subgenre that is kaiju. And that's Godzilla.
Or Gojira.
Gojira, yeah. It's really funny to watch him make that joke because the lips don't. The sound design on this is so bad, but it's funny. But this was based off of Creature from 2000 Fathoms. This was, a Beast from 2000 Fathoms. Yeah, 20,000 Fathoms. That's what it came from. This was based off of that movie 1 year prior, and it was basically Japan going, oh shit, this is really fucking cool, I'm gonna do this. And what they would do is they'd put a guy in a rubber suit and then mix that with the whole stop motion monster thing that was done in Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, and there you go. 20 plus movies later, it's a cultural phenomenon, man. No, you're good. Go ahead.
There is a myth. I don't know if it's true or not, but the myth is that because the real name is Gojira, that Godzilla comes from a mistranslation.
I wouldn't be
That
surprised.
it actually, yeah, and the thing is, it's also a nuclear holocaust analog.
It is. It really is. I mean, obviously, it's a creature is brought from its slumber because of atomic testing. Yeah.
It's actually one of my favorite horror movies of all time.
It's a great horror movie. It's one of the best franchises that's ever been made, although it's kind of gone the way it's gone through waves of weird, just like even the Universal monsters did.
Yeah.
Like it's got some movies that are really fucking fantastic, and then it's got some that are just batshit insane and so hokey you just sit out and go, what the fuck? What am I even watching?
Actually, when I watch the hokey ones, I just keep thinking, it's Japan. I gotta give them a break.
That's true. They do have like panty vending machines in Japan, so I'm not shocked by anything that comes out of there anymore.
We do not talk about the American version Muskie.
No. No, we do not talk about it, Mike. We do not talk about it.
But there is a movie, and I cannot remember the name of it, where the original Godzilla faces off against the American Godzilla and beats him in 10 seconds.
Oh, yeah, because the American Godzilla is kind of dumb. But what's really funny about Godzilla is it's one of those instances where in the initial movie, Godzilla's dead at the end. But because it was so fucking popular, they brought him back and made more movies about him. Obviously, there's like 20 plus movies now of Godzilla.
That's because he is awesome.
He is very, very big. It's fantastic. There are a couple more movies that came out that will go into some of the stuff that we'll talk about in the 60s and that influenced your the guy you guffaw over. We'll get to that, but there are two that kind of took a little bit of that particular person took a little bit of inspiration from, and first is The Night Hunter by Charles Lalton in 1955. This one is basically a serial killer preacher that stalks two children looking for stolen money. And it kind of takes the silent era dreaminess of making things kind of mesmerizing and drawing you in, but it gives you this smack in the face because it just portrays humankind as shit, basically. It's like it's a portrayal, quote unquote, scathing portrayal of hypocritical evil. And it's, from what I'm understanding, really fantastic. And there's so many movies that I'm learning about through this stuff that I want to go watch. So
it just proves that you can't trust preachers.
No, I think we knew that for a while. And then the second of these movies is Le Diabolique, and that's by Henry Georges Clouzot in 1955, where a wife and a mistress team up to kill the man that's been abusing them and controlling their lives.
You really, really love talking in French.
I tried, you know, to. It's not that I love talking in French, although I did have one girlfriend that talked in French that was I was very nice. I'm not gonna get into that, but it's like we'll just leave it at that. But I try to at least talk in that dialect if I can.
Yeah, I understand. I just had to call back to the video.
Yeah. Lelou. Come on, that is like the funnest. That is the most fun thing to say. It is. Sounds fun. I can't help it. I can't. Anyway, this one is a throwback to the 1920s kind of old dark house mystery horror films, but it's a little bit different because what it did was three things that wasn't really seen before. And the first being, it just asks the audience not to spoil the plot twist ending. It asks you not to spoil the M. Night Shyamalan ding dong at the end.
Well, that was nice of them to do that.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you didn't have the internet, so you couldn't really... everything was word of mouth, if anything. It emphasized the experience of a guilty protagonist. Like, the protagonist is already not a good person. But it still draws on that and makes you empathize with them to some extent. And like The Night of the Hunter, it basically says humanity and human beings in general are shit. Which isn't totally wrong.
No, I was actually gonna say that, but then I realized that I'm surrounded by humans. I shouldn't.
I'm surrounded by idiots. No, you guys aren't dumb. I just wanted to say that because I love that line.
I do too. I can't remember who actually says it though.
Fake French stories.
Oh,
French
okay.
stories. I love it. Y'all are making up the best shit. So funny. I get a kick out of this. 10 likes. 11 likes, actually. Oh, we are at 10 likes now? Cool. Sweet. Yeah, if you like what you're hearing, just hit the like button for me. Yes, please. Thank you. Then
and remember, all art is by Cat.
Yes, all art is by Cat. The wonderful and beautiful Cat. Well, the two little images you see on the screen of me and Nox are from Cat, yes. Not everything is from Cat, because, I mean, the background isn't from Cat. And yeah, we'll go with that. And this is, around this time is when Italian movie cinema, or Italian movie producers got back into the game, with the first Italian movie since the sound era, which is like the 1930s, with I Vampiri, or The Lust of the Vampire, in 1956 by Ricardo Frida and Mario Bava. Keep an eye on Mario Bava, because that's another important name to know. Then we had Invasion of the Body Snatchers in 1956 by Don Siegel, I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm kind of dumb.
I think it's Siegel, actually.
Siegel? Is it Siegel?
Yeah, I think it's Siegel.
Okay, we'll go with that. By Don Siegel. And this one was the one that really played on the metaphor for communism, fascism, political correctness, conformity, the church, all that stuff that everybody didn't want to happen. And this was the one where there was like the secret invasion of pod people, quote unquote, that show up, take over humans, or take over by killing humans slowly and replacing them. That is it.
I remember the remake. I don't remember the actual original, though.
Yeah, I remember the remake more than I do the original, but it's still pretty important to know. It's initially had a negative ending, like a lot of movies. It had a really pessimistic ending to it, but the studio was like, "Nah, we're not doing that. It's gonna freak people out too much." So they changed it and put it that the invaders were destroyed at the end. Kind of a cop out. But there's a really important quote that I wanted to point out from this movie, and that's from the character Dr. Bennell, who was played by Kevin McCarthy at the time in the movie, and it says, "In my practice, I've seen how people have allowed their humanity to drain away. Only it happens slowly instead of all at once. They didn't seem to mind." Which is kind of scary. It's kind of like what you're seeing today with how we used to think a certain way like a few years ago, and now a few years later we're like, holy shit, this is a definite shift that we didn't see coming, because we didn't think it was a problem at the time.
Yeah, problems never come up when you want them to. Mm-hmm. It's always after you haven't noticed.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Around this time, we also get the second round of movie monsters with the Hammer films. And I'm pretty sure everybody in here has seen a Hammer film at some point.
I've seen all of them.
I haven't seen all of them, but I've seen a couple. I'm gonna quote exactly what their little credo is, and how they did their movies, using a little line from one of their directors, Terrence Fisher, and that's, "The best horror films are adult fairy tales. No more, no less." Very true. And I will say that they definitely kept to that, because a lot of their horror movies were more sexualized than the previous. And what's interesting...
They also had two really cool people in them.
Oh, yeah, we'll go over that. But I want to explain a little bit about how, like, the Hammer films worked, or how what we see a lot in these films. There are four particular people that you see involved in a lot of these. Director Terrence Fisher, screenwriter Jimmy Sangster, cinematographer Jack Asher, and production designer Bernard Robinson. Those four are involved in pretty much all of these movies, with the exception of some. And a lot of them is a revival of classic monsters in Technicolor. They basically just grabbed all of the Universal horror monsters and redid them in their own spiel.
I think they were British, too.
Yes, they started with doing a BBC television adaptation of the Quatermass Experiment. I believe I talked about that last stream, but they basically started off being a remake company. And their first movie that they did that we are familiar with is The Curse of Frankenstein in 1957. And guess who plays the monster?
Oh, I already know, but I don't want to spoil it.
It's Christopher Lee. Saruman himself.
He also was Count Dooku.
Yes. The very wonderful and lovely Christopher Lee was Frankenstein's monster.
And
Peter.
he led a badass life. I have
He
to say
did.
that.
He did. Isn't he still alive?
No, he passed away
Really?
a while. I can't remember exactly what year he passed away, but I know that he before he passed away did a metal album with
Really?
about Lord of the Rings. Yeah,
Hold on. I'm looking. Oh, he died in 2015. I didn't
yeah.
even know that. Fuck,
He has
man.
the best quote that I've ever had
That
about
hurts
acting
me.
too.
I was gonna guess that THS played the monster. Dude, I wasn't even fucking alive.
You're immortal, you know it.
I wish. Actually, no, I don't, because we've seen what immortality gets you.
But Christopher Lee really quickly had the best line when it came to acting because he mentioned in an interview how a lot of people don't like to break out of their comfort zone,
Yeah,
how they always act in the same thing. Well, if you're going to act in the same thing, you only have 10 or 15 years in the business before you become stale.
yep,
Longevity is to go outside your comfort zone.
yep.
You
I
can actually
100%
put
agree.
that in YouTube videos too.
Exactly. I mean, that's part of why I switch up my stuff so much. I don't put out the same kind of content over and over again. I kind of cycle through things to keep it kind of fresh. Um, but this is also interesting because it has Peter Cushing as Frankenstein.
Also known as Grand Moff Talkin'.
Yeah. Like, these guys, you'll notice how these guys run into each other all the time. And the Hammer films were funny in a certain way, because instead of the Doctor being kind of like, you sympathize with him in a way because he's trying to do something good, in this movie he's using the monster as a murder weapon. And not only that, he's in a fucking love triangle, which wasn't in any of the iterations of Frankenstein before that.
I don't think it was even in the book.
No, it wasn't. It's like, huh?
I've read the book. I don't remember a love triangle in the book.
I don't either. I read the book too. I read a lot of those older books, and I don't remember that. And it also was kind of interesting because it got slapped with an X rating because of obscene and graphic content. Yeah, buddy, there was lots of blood and gore and killing in this one in comparison.
Yeah, and in the 50s, that we're gonna get into it with Psycho because I have a point to make about Psycho. But in the 50s, showing any type of blood and gore, even if it's just a slight little bit, would be a rated R.
Oh yeah. Well, no, in this case, it's usually an X rating because
Yeah,
the rating system was really different. Like, fucking Grease was PG. Grease is not PG. Are you fucking kidding me?
well, that came before the PG-13 rating came out.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you're like, what? The rating system was very different in comparison to how it is now. We're almost done with the 50s, guys. I'm sorry, it's dragging a little bit. We're having a good time.
Yeah, and unfortunately, after we get done, I'm going to have to do a tipster and use the bathroom before we get into the 60s, if that's okay.
Oh, that's fine, no problem. You can go to the bathroom at any time. Like, you don't have to wait for me. You can just go.
Okay, I have to go to the little fox's room. I'll be right back.
Bye. I'll entertain the people. I'll entertain everybody while he's gone and continue. The next movie that we've got is The Incredible Shrinking Man in 1957 by Jack Arnold once again. In this particular one, it follows that vein of somebody that's exposed haplessly to mutation. And in this case, guy is exposed to insecticide and radiation and slowly but surely gets smaller. Oddly enough, this is apparently supposed to be a metaphor for sexual desirability. I'm not totally sure how that works. I'm not totally sure how that works, but okay. Unlike the previous film where the studio stepped in and was like, hey, we're gonna cut your original ending because we don't like it. This one said fuck you and decided to keep the film to something more existential. And a quote from the ending that will make you ponder, as it said, is this: "Smaller than the smallest, I meant something too. To God, there is no zero. I still exist."
I'm back.
Oh, you're back. Look at that. That was really fast. I just finished my little spiel on the Incredible Shrinking Man.
Yeah, my bathroom is not that far away. It's not like I have to like go up 3 flights of stairs. I just have to walk out of my living room.
Lucky you. I have to take a little bit of a walk across the house to go to the bathroom if I wanted to go. But
I live in a
close,
small
usually.
apartment.
Yeah, I don't. I live in a 2-story house.
I want a 2-story house.
I got lucky. But I was just pondering on how in this particular movie, size is a metaphor for sexual desirability. The smaller you are, the less desirable sexually you are.
God dang it, I'm short. No, I take that offense to that.
I thought it was supposed to be it wasn't the size of the boat, but the motion of the ocean. I thought that's what that, or is it, like, I might be misconstruing that.
No, you got it completely right. And I'm like, fuck the 50s. I'm a short dude. Leave me alone.
Fuck you. I mean, I'm a shorty too, but hey, we got 3 of the girls that showed up. Now we just need Nuggies and Nyx to show up, and we'll have had all of the BWB girls in here at some point. I'm gonna bug them, see if they'll pop in, cause I'm a dick.
RBF is resting bitch face, right?
Yes.
Okay, I had to make sure.
Hat Nugget.
But by the way, when you were talking about Drinking Man, I was thinking Ant-Man.
Ant-Man. Oh man.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yeah, Honey, I Shrunk the... Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good series, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, man.
Oh,
People don't understand how fun those movies are.
There's a movie coming up that there is a movie coming up, if I start singing, just mute me.
I just sent a message to Nugget and Nyx, and it was like, you need to come say hi so everybody sees that all the our BWB girls came in and said hi. Your public needs you. I'm an asshole sometimes. I do this. The next movie we'll talk about, the third to last, we'll talk about is The Fly by Kurt Newman. This is the original The Fly. This isn't the one with Jeff Goldblum. But I mean, we're all aware of.
I've seen both.
Yeah, we're pretty aware of how this goes. But this is really where the body horror subgenre kind of came into fruit. It came to fruition. See, people want to know where BWB is, when we're gonna come back. See, welcome back, Renegade.
Well, here's the fun thing. This is my opinion on The Fly. The original started the body horror genre. The remake brought it into a new stratosphere.
Brought it out of the fucking water. Like, that shit grossed me out.
But I still love Jeff Goldblum.
It's a fantastic role for him. He did amazingly. Like, we'll talk. Like, that's in the 80s, right?
Yeah, that's the 80s.
So I'll talk about that in another stream. But yeah, it's a really good movie.
I love The Fly.
The Fly's a good movie in general. Both of them are great, but I would say that the remake was probably the better of the two. Obviously,
remake
we've got
the grossest one of the two.
Yes, it makes you feel something a little bit differently in certain ways. But this one, everybody knows the story. Scientist is trying to teleport himself from one thing to another, kind of like Bill from Pokemon. Or Bill copied that. And a fly goes into the pod and ends up merging them together DNA-wise. So, yeah. We saw how that worked. But let's go to another Hammer film, The Horror of Dracula, 1958. Sexy Dracula with Christopher Lee. This is where
Because
that
Christopher
started.
Lee is sexy.
He was the sexy Dracula, the one that wanted to take women in. That was like the James Bond of Draculas.
And there was a lot more blood sucking in that one too.
Yes, because he was kind of manic. I would say in a way, not maybe. Yeah, he was manic. I'll just say manic. I'll go with that, so I don't say something that pisses people off. But he would go from like being this suave, svelte, sexual beast to I'm gonna fucking kill you, and I'm gonna kill you right fucking now. He'd go from he'd have this like insatiable demonic bloodlust that he would swing into at certain points, and it was, oh my god, it was great to see.
Yeah, and the fun thing, not fun thing, I shouldn't say fun thing about this, but Christopher Lee kind of made Dracula's own, and roughly around the time he was coming to rise as Dracula, basically, Bela Lugosi had passed away.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
Bela Lugosi is always going to be the original Dracula. But if you've noticed, every person that's touched the Dracula moniker or played Dracula has had their own spin on it.
Yeah, and I think Christopher Lee's is a lot, even counting the later Dracula movies. I think Christopher Lee's is still the most vicious.
I think it also is a little bit more the character in the book that Bram Stoker originally envisioned or put into writing. I think that's probably one of the ones that's closest to that character.
Yeah, and the most interesting thing, because I'm kind of an expert on vampires because I love vampire fiction and literature and lore.
I'm gonna give a hot take that isn't much of a hot take. Vampires don't fucking sparkle.
Exactly.
You can't tell me otherwise. Anybody that says they sparkle, go fuck yourself.
The fun thing is that Stephanie Meyer never actually researched vampires.
No.
But the thing is that vampires can come out in the day, but they choose not to. That's even in Bram Stoker's book. Dracula comes out during the day a couple of times in the book.
Yeah, but I think it's more to they do if you light them on fire. That's not sparkly. They just combust.
That's just something you toast marshmallows on.
Yeah, I think Interview with the Vampire shows that oh, hi Nerdy John. But I think I'm a D&D lover. I grew up with Dungeons and Dragons since I was a child. I researched the ever-loving fuck out of vampires, and I still am of the mind that vampires don't sparkle in the fucking sunlight. If they go in the sunlight, they're gonna either burst into fucking flames or just turn to ash. I will always and forever stick to that particular form of vampire.
And that's fine. And that's fine. You can stick to that. You have a basis for that. Mm-hmm. It's just I'm more like the old school Dracula where they could come out, but why would they? When it's more fun to be out at night.
You could do that too, but I mean I would rather I think the more modern version of vampires that I like the most is Anne Rice's Vampires. I love those.
I actually love the movies Let the Right One In and Let Me In because it's a child vampire. It's creepy.
Another good series, if you guys want to get into vampires that has everything else in it, is the Holo series by Kim Harrison. Yeah. I don't know anybody besides one person that's read those books, and they are fantastic. They solve this problem so fucking fast. I love the way they solve it. They have what are called living vampires that are children of vampires and humans. They can walk in the sunlight, and they're technically living. However, once they die, they become full-blown vampires and cannot go in the sun anymore.
Another good one to get into before we get back into this stuff, because I think we've just kind of gone off on awesomeness of vampires, is The Witcher does vampires interesting too, because there's different types. Mm-hmm. If you're a high vampire, you look like a human.
Yep.
But if you're a lower vampire, you look like a rat-faced bastard.
Yep. Yep.
But the best part is the way that they actually do with the feasting of blood. If you're a high vampire, you don't have to feast on blood. It just is basically like heroin to you. So,
Yeah.
anyways, let's get back to this.
We're gonna get back to it. Yeah, we'll move on. The last movie of the 1950s that I'm gonna go over is another Prince of Darkness favorite of mine, House on Haunted Hill. It's not the first House on Haunted Hill, but it's one of them. And I love how maniacal and conniving Vincent Price is in this movie. Ugh. You can tell him and his wife in this movie fucking hate each other. They want each other fucking dead. It is so good. Oh,
Yeah,
God.
and it's also one of those movies, if I remember right, that it's like, is she seeing things or is this real?
Okay, I've decided. Fuck it. I was gonna do on my birthday, 27th. I'm gonna do a gaming stream and I'm gonna do some drinking. However, afterwards, I wanted to do a watching of a movie or two movies, and now I'm decided I'm doing Vincent Price movies. Fuck it, that's what we're doing. I will play Fatal Frame. I will raffle off a Fatal Frame game, and I'm gonna watch Vincent Price movies in Discord. Fuck it, we're doing it.
Are you gonna watch his Batman series cameos too, where he's playing the Eggman villain?
No, we're probably just gonna watch one or two of the movies. Probably House on Haunted Hill.
Okay.
And House of Wax, probably, because I own both of them. I'm down. I'm doing it. Let's do it. Fuck yeah. So if you're not in the Discord, it should be the link to my Discord should be in my bio. Yes, it is my birthday, and that's my 29th birthday.
And if I'm not excited. And if I'm not there, happy early birthday. If I am there, happy early birthday.
Thank you. Now we're finally done with the 1950s. Let's get to the 1960s. First movie we'll talk about is 13 Ghosts by William Castle. I'm not going to talk too much about it because the one that I'm more familiar with is the remake, which is a absolute filthy movie, but it's a guilty pleasure for me because I love the backstory of the ghosts.
It's not that much different. The only real big differences are there's no backstory for the ghosts.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's pretty much almost the same. Almost. There's slight differences that I can't remember because I need to take a sip of coffee, but
yeah. In the 1960s is also when our boy Mario Bava comes back into play, and when Italian horror becomes a rolling phenomenon. You'll notice that from the 60s up until the 80s, Italian horror was huge. And it influenced a lot of different movies with this particular one because it had this particular opening scene that ended with somebody dying from a spiked mask. It was extremely gory, and people have played the shit out of that particular death. From then on, they've used that so many times, over and over and over again. It's so fucking amazing. But that's the start of where the fun with that is. After that, we have Eyes Without a Face, which is a French film. I'm not gonna try and pronounce that at all.
Georges Franu.
Yeah, no, I mean, no, the French version. Eyes Without a Face isn't the original name.
Okay, I thought you were talking about the director's name.
No. Georges Franju, yeah, we'll go with that. But this is also 1961. And this one has a father killing a woman to transplant her features onto his scarred daughter. That's used like a motherfucker constantly. The third film we'll talk about is another Vincent Price one. I haven't seen this one, but I really want to, and it's The Fall of the House of Usher, which is an Edgar Allan Poe poem. Great poem. I've heard nothing but good things about this movie. I'll have to go. I think it's the first. No, it's not, because House of Wax was in Technicolor. Never mind. Forget what I was going to say about that. After that, we have Little Shop of Horrors by Roger Corman. Both the House of Usher and Little Shop of Horrors is by Roger Corman.
I have to say this really quickly. I'm dancing to the music of Little House Shop of Horrors in my head.
Nice. It's a good one. It's a good one. It's a good movie. Or at least I like the remake better, the musical better, my opinion.
Yeah.
That's what I'm gonna say. But feed me, Seymour. It's one of my favorite lines. I'm going to go ahead and hand this off to you. I gotta go take a potty break, but I know you have some stuff to say about Psycho and Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh, I have things to say about the birds too, but I can wait for the birds.
Yeah, you can wait for the birds, but I'll let you talk about Psycho and Entertaining the People for a hot minute while I go use the bathroom. So
Okay, well, before I go into Psycho, though, I have to talk about really quickly. It's a movie that isn't labeled as a horror movie, but I think it should be, and that's Rear Window. If you've seen Disturbia, it's basically the same freaking premise, where a dude is spying on his neighbors and he sees a murder. It's a beautiful movie. I love it. Watch it. It came out in the 50s. Second, about Psycho is actually one of the first slasher films that I've ever seen. And Hitchcock actually is one of the most popular directors amongst other directors. I did too, resting bitch face, or RBF, sorry. I took a Hitchcock class in college, so he's the first one to use the God's eye view, which is the camera shot from above in the clouds, basically. But he also was innovative in this one because Janet Leigh was one of the stars that had top billing. And if you've seen the movie, she dies within the first 30 minutes of the movie. This was an interesting ploy because back then you could buy a ticket and sit through as many showings as you wanted before they started making things different. So what he would do is if you missed the actual beginning credits and you walked in, you thinking you're seeing the end of the movie, so you'll stay to see the movie again, not knowing that you did not see the end of the movie, you saw the beginning of the movie. Not only that, but it's one of the first movies that actually has a flushing toilet in it, because apparently that was considered obscene. Second, it was violent for the time, and it almost got an X rating. Third, the blood that you actually see in the bathroom is actually chocolate syrup. And, well, that's kind of cool in my opinion because it's black and white, so you can't tell that it's actually something other than blood. But it's one of my favorite movies. It's got Janet Leigh, of course. Janet Leigh is the mother of Jamie Lee Curtis, if anybody didn't know that. In fact, Jamie Lee Curtis for Halloween Kills actually dressed up as Janet Leigh for the premiere. And there's an actual, and if you, not going to spoil Halloween Kills, but if you go see it, there is an actual scene in there that plays homage to Psycho. And I'm not going to tell you what the scene is, and I'm not going to do any of that stuff. No spoilers, just saying there's an actual scene in there that actually pays homage to Psycho. Because Alfred Hitchcock inspired people like Steven Spielberg and a lot of the newer directors that you see, because that's how prevalent his name was. He also in Psycho, you have basically Norman Bates, who is pretty much Ed Gein. And if you don't know who Ed Gein is, brush up on your serial killer history. Because he was a hugely influential serial killer because he inspired 3 different characters. And, well, I'm trying to think of other things that I know because I don't know when she's coming back.
I'm back.
Oh, yeah, they you
I'm back.
came back just as I was going to say the last interesting fact about Psycho.
Go ahead.
Alfred Hitchcock put in the contract that you cannot make a sequel to Psycho until I'm dead.
Well, unfortunately, they remade it and they did a terrible job at it.
Yeah, and that's why you don't have a sequel to Psycho until the 1980s.
Yep.
But I had to mention this. It's not a spoiler, but in Halloween Kills, they pay homage to Psycho.
I heard you say that. Yeah, you said that earlier.
I didn't want you to go, God damn it, stop ruining movies, stab you with a clicky pen.
Stab you with a clicky pen. You must die. There's another movie that came out I haven't seen either, but I'm dying to see it now because it's very similar to Psycho in some ways, but it's a little more dark, I think, in others. Or a little darker in others. Sorry, more dark is not the correct way to say it. I'm sorry, I'm a grammar Nazi a little bit.
Yeah, it's fine.
But Peeping Tom by Michael Powell came out in the 1960s as well, the same year. And has daddy issues as the main focus instead of mommy issues. The main character is basically a guinea pig for his father who wants to study how fear affects the human psyche and the human condition. And, of course, that plays out through the entirety of the film, because main character ends up renting out his rooms of his house, his dad's mansion after his dad died, obviously, to different people that he would go to kill and film as he stalked and killed them. He eventually meets a girl that he falls in love with, but she figures out what he's doing, and when she figures out, he freaks out and ends up doing something very particular. I'm gonna give the quote first. He says, "Whatever I photograph, I lose." Guess what he loses at the end of this movie? I'm gonna spoil it because it's really interesting to me. He commits game end in Minecraft on camera.
F's in chat.
F's in chat for serial killer dude.
Oh, never mind. No F's in chat.
Yeah. Oh, Rock and Ruin, thank you very much for the $20. I really appreciate it, man. You didn't have to.
That's worth
really
like
appreciate it. Thank you.
That's like 4 cups of Starbucks coffee.
Four pumpkin spice lattes. Yeah, buddy. I make most of my coffee anyway, though.
I'm almost done with mine.
He also makes a comment in the movie at the end around this time that says, that he's happy he's afraid right now. He's happy he's afraid that he's gonna die. Because he knows what he's gonna do, obviously.
Really quickly, if you guys can hear anything from my background, my cats decided they wanted to start playing.
That's okay. We like cats here. Most of the BWB girls are cat ladies, so totally okay. Fucking Mike, and here I was thinking it was a doc pic. That's Mike for you. Love that
I don't
guy.
know Mike, so
he's just a big old lovable weirdo. He's my weirdo.
We have a lot of weirdos around us.
Yeah, but we love them.
True.
He's the one that said in Discord he had the weird dream. That's him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's that guy. He's my buddy. There's a lot of story behind Mike, but we'll just say that he's my lovable degenerate weirdo.
Nothing wrong with degeneracy.
No, I'm a degenerate too. I love all my weirdos and degenerate quirky peoples. Dogs are better, cats are more independent and quirky. I like doggos too. I have two doggies.
I love dogs and cats. The only problem is my apartment only allows cats, and I got two black cats who who were just starting running around. So I was like, oh crap, they probably can hear that.
Rock and Ruin for 5. I love pit bulls and I'm scared to death of cats. I had an experience. That's totally okay. No, not Mike the Bike Renegator. It's a different Mike. Very different Mike. I'm not gonna go any further into that because I'm not on good terms with Mike the Bike. So,
You want to see an awesome segue?
Sure.
Well, we're getting right into Village of the Damned.
Yeah, you know what's worse than animals? Kids.
Yes.
Psycho kids. Village of the Dead is when they first started bringing children, creepy fucking children, into films as the bad guys. Yeah, these are the creepy blonde kids with the dark eyes that have their own little village and take over and all that fun stuff. It's basically, this is like the first time that was done too. Because it was really taboo for a long time, even into like the 70s and 80s, to have kids as the bad guys, especially if you killed kids in movies. If you killed kids in movies, that was extremely no-no. That was taboo as fuck.
I think in some ways it still is taboo, but people go there anyways.
But it's not as taboo. You don't get like slapped on the wrist, and you don't get not as much. Yes, it's the movie that gave birth to Children of the Corn. Yes, this is the first one of those. It was also based upon just the absolute distrust of the youthful generation, which I think is valid. Very valid. I think more so now than ever before. It's more valid. And that's my
Children
absolute opinion. Yeah, it can either go really well for you or it could go really bad. And in the case of lately, it's gotten really bad. We're going to hell in a handbasket, ladies and gentlemen.
I blame TikTok.
I blame TikTok too. After that, we have the Innocence, which also plays against the whole children are the bad guy. Oh my god, that movie, Mind Reader Children, right? Yep, they're telepathic children. Yes, Rock and Ruin. It's a good movie. It's really creepy as fuck too. But in the Innocence, it's an adaptation of Henry James's 1989 novel, The Turn of the Screw. Basically, it's another play on, is this actually happening or is it not? Because the main character is a governess that's got 2 wards or 2 children that she's taking care of, that she thinks is possessed by 2 ghostly lovers, and there's weird shit that happens in the house and with these kids. But the entire time you're wondering, is this legitimate? Are these kids actually possessed and doing this stuff, or is she fucking insane? It's one of those really good sort of like thriller mind fucks. And after that, we get Carnival of Souls in 1962 by Herc Harvey, and this started as a genre. I love the fucking name of this. Oh my god. I mentioned it again later in my notes that I sent to Knox for a different movie, but this one's called Hagsploitation or Psychobiddy.
That's a cool name.
Funniest shit. Hagsploitation. I gotta spell this in chat for everybody so they can see it. This is what it's called. Hagsploitation. Psychobiddy. It's basically older women being like freaked out by, like, it's either like older women or just women just being freaked out in general. It's really fucking funny. I think that's the funniest thing I've ever seen or heard. But This one is I think the first in comparison to that. What it has is a woman who's basically caught in between the worlds of life and death after surviving a car accident. They should have been fatal car accident. And as she's going through the movie, she's seeing weird shit. It's very like hazy. She continues to say there's no place in this world for me because she's in between life and death. And she sees this guy with a white face that's following her around. And it's obviously a metaphor for the Grim Reaper. The Grim Reaper's following her around, waiting for her to die because she should have died and didn't.
Kind of sounds like the inspiration for the movie Ghost.
Maybe?
Maybe, but
I don't know. Are we talking about the Patrick Swayze ghost or a different one?
no, I'm talking about the Patrick Swayze Ghost.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't see a whole lot of like comparisons in that, but I don't know.
Well, I was having an ADHD moment.
Maybe. We also have Mondo Cane in 1962, which is another movie that a lot of people are not very happy with. That's because it started a genre a lot of people do not like. And that's the cannibal documentaries, like Cannibal Holocaust. This predated that. This kind of started that. It's a documentary style film, obviously. That has people going into the forest trying to prove that there isn't cannibals, but they find a cannibal cult, and we know how that goes. There's animal abuse. There's really fucked up stuff that's going on to get the shots. It's not my cup of tea. Those are not my kind of movies at all. I'm not a fan.
I've never watched a cannibal film for Silence of because it just doesn't interest me.
Silence of the Lambs, I think, is very different than...
Yeah, Silence of the Lambs is completely different.
That's good shit. Like, that's the kind of... I will watch those kind of films. But the whole, like, Cannibal Holocaust, those are two different kinds of movies. Like, those aren't even close. It's just a movie that happens to have a cannibal in it, but... Mondo Cane and those kind of movies I'm not interested in. Period. I'm just not. So we're gonna move on. This particular movie is apparently like extremely iconic within the LGBTQ community, and I see it all the time referenced in like RuPaul's Drag Race and stuff like that, because I love that stuff. That's my kind of bag. It's my guilty pleasure. But Whatever Happened to Baby Jane by Robert Aldrich came out in 1962. And it has Joan Crawford and Bette Davis in it, playing two sisters who were former Hollywood starlets, with Joan Crawford being an absolute psychopath and abuses the living shit out of her other sister. I haven't seen it, but I've seen every like reference to it I've seen is hysterical. So I do need to go see it. Like, there's a laundry list of movies that I need to go watch, and I just haven't been able to.
Well, Joan Crawford was really good at playing crazy.
Joan Crawford was amazing. She's an amazing actress, period. Like, don't even fight me on that. She's an amazing actress. She's a fucking icon. But I just haven't seen this movie. Bette Davis was an icon as well.
Yeah, she has a song named after her, Bette Davis Eyes.
Yeah. Like, they're both extremely iconic female actors. But, another, like, the last one before we let you get into your rant about the birds, is X, the Man with X-Ray Eyes in 1963 by Roger Corman. This one's another of the scientists that fucks with himself and finds out. He basically makes these eye drops that are supposed to make his vision better. And it just becomes like an absolute curse. Like, he gets to the point where he just can't function properly in society at all. It's like he's fucked forever because he's used these eye drops so many times. It's that Jekyll Hyde thing. Didn't they remake that in the late 70s? I don't know. We'll probably run into it when I get to those. I don't think they ever remade Whatever happened to Baby Jane? I don't think they did.
I think she's thinking of another film, but I could be
Probably.
wrong.
My favorite part of The Hills Have Eyes, I don't know who is. He's Shit Man the Barbarian. LOL. Nice. Love it. Shit Man the Barbarian. Good shit. And now we've got to The Birds by Alfred Hitchcock in 1963, and it's one of those when nature attacks movies. But I'll let you spiel on that.
This is actually my favorite Hitchcock movie, by the way.
Is it?
Yeah, because unlike his other movies, this one actually has moments that just make you actually terrified to see birds, a bunch of birds in the trees when you walk outside. Hitchcock had this thing with blondes. It's really well known.
Yeah.
But he really loved to torture them.
Oh jeez. Yeah, that's what I've heard. I've heard that he's got some sort of fuck, what's his name? Guy who did The Shining.
God dang it.
I know you know what I'm talking about.
I know who you're talking about. I just, for some reason, am having a brain fart.
Carpenter, isn't it?
No, not Carpenter. He did 2001: A Space Odyssey too.
Yeah, I know the chat knows what we're talking about, but that's
Kubrick, Stanley Kubrick.
There you go, Kubrick. Yeah, they like to fuck with their actresses, especially if they were a certain type.
Yeah, and the thing about The Birds is the final scene, Tippi Hedren's character gets attacked by a bunch of birds, right? The birds were attached to her clothes. These live birds were attached to her clothes by nylon string. Yeah. So she was really getting pecked.
Oof.
So that is proof on its own that Hitchcock could be a torture person.
Yeah.
But surprisingly, Tippi Hedren later in interviews about it said that was the funnest time that she actually had. And same with Janet Leigh. Working with Hitchcock apparently was really fun. The only problem is they went through torture to get there.
Yeah, that's
and your avatar is blonde, so guess what he would do to you?
I would probably fucked, and then I'd probably beat his ass because I don't take that shit lying down. I'm not the
Yeah, he probably could. He's got
shit.
He was a fat ass, so you probably could beat his ass pretty easily.
Yeah, beat his ass. In Minecraft, guys, in Minecraft.
But the whole entire setting is actually interesting because the one scene that I remember the most is when all these birds are attacking and they're stuck in different homes in a car and stuff. And my first thought is, holy crap, I know where Tremors got the idea from.
Kitten brings up Clockwork Orange. That's a really good movie. It's really fun.
Oh, yeah.
It's a really good movie. Renegator says
I don't think
there's
that's a horror, though.
I think it kind of is, but I don't know if it's on their list. I don't remember off the top of my head. But Renegator66 says there's a movie called The Howling Village that's based on the urban legend of the cursed Inuki village, but it's Japanese audio only, and I'm dying to see it. That sounds interesting. Alfred would just sit on THS making your true pancake stories. He'd have to catch me first. Fast as fuck.
Don't worry, Hitchcock's dead.
Yeah, he's dead already.
By the way, there's actually another one when you get to the 70s that's actually an interesting Hitchcock movie, but it's not really well known.
Okay, we'll get to it. It's on that list, right?
You didn't give me any list for the 70s.
Yeah, I did. Remember the website I sent to you? The link?
Oh, yeah, this website. I'm an idiot. I had a derp.
I don't know if it's on there, but if we get to it, if it's on there, then we'll go over that. If we don't, then you can.
Well, if you really want, I can just mention it here because it's one of his final movies. It's called Frenzy, and it deals with a serial killer who rapes and murders people with a tie, and it's got the worst facials for death scenes I've ever seen.
I could say something about the facials part, but I'm not going to. I'm gonna be demure and hold some decorum.
Giggity.
Giggity. Yeah, good you. But I haven't heard of that one, so I'll have to look at that as well.
It's not on the list. I just know.
Yeah, no,
just
it's not. I didn't see it in there. Where were we at? Oh, we did the birds. Okay, so the next one we're gonna talk about is Black Sabbath. Yes, this is where the band got their name from. Black Sabbath by Mario Bava once again. Our boy Bava. 19 likes. Oh shit! One more and we got 20. Man, these
reference my
ADHD.
My only ADHD moment right now. It's a me, Mario.
I'm not gonna go through that because I don't want to get striked. Anyway, or struck, not struck. Gotta correct myself or else I'll lose my shit. But Black Sabbath was an anthology movie. It had like 3 different stories in it, and it's one of the last of Boris Karloff's performances, which is sad because we all know how legendary that man is. Period. It's really sad, but it was a really interesting movie from what I'm seeing. I like anthologies, so pretty interesting. And then we'll get to one that kind of gives Psycho the middle finger. It's called Blood Feast, and it's done in 1963 by Herschel Gordon Lewis. And this one was basically made because Lewis thought that Hitchcock cheated his audience out of more violence. He was like, you didn't show enough violence for what was going on. You cheated us out of our blood and gore, so I'm gonna give you more. And this is credited as the first ever splatter gore film.
Not surprising, because in the early 60s, like I said, a toilet flush was considered taboo.
Yeah. This one was basically an Egyptian caterer collects female body parts in an attempt to resurrect the Egyptian goddess Ishtar. Okay.
Which is weird because Ishtar is actually Babylonian, but if they collect... Sorry. My historian nerd came up.
Sense. Oh, I think he mistook what Hitchcock was about. Yeah. This was his debut too, so this guy never made a movie before, from what I remember from my reading.
Hitchcock was all about what you don't see is more scarier than what you do see.
It's the unknown. It's the unknown that's scarier than what you actually see, and I agree with that. A lot of movies that I really like are pretty much, yeah. Didn't Alfred star in that movie? I think I remember seeing a minute. No, I don't think so.
Alfred Hitchcock only did cameos in his movies.
Yeah, no, I don't think he had anything to do with Blood Feast. So I think he might be misremembering there.
Because I think around this time is the start of the Alfred Hitchcock Presents television show.
No, I think you're misremembering what the cameos rock and ruin. I don't think he would. I don't think he'd star in or feature in a movie that was giving him the middle finger.
Oh, he did?
Did he? Let me look. I don't think he did, but...
I have to look this up.
No, I don't see Alfred Hitchcock at all in this. When I look it up from, all cast and crew on IMDb, he's not in there, no. No, Alfred's not in this one. He's not involved. I just looked at
I just looked up I just looked up his list of cameos. It's not on there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where you found that. Rock and Ruin. You've got a wrench, so if you want to throw that link down there and we'll look at it. But it's not on IMDb and it's not on wherever Knox looked.
Wikipedia.
So.
Yes, I used Wikipedia for once.
Maybe. I don't know. But the next thing is The Haunting in 1963 by Robert Wise. This is another one of Is It Real, Is It Fake? Because it has paranormal investigators go inside of a house that's haunted. And it's also another play on House on Haunted Hill, so it's just a retread. YouTube video.
That's actually That's actually one of my favorite '60s movies was The Haunting because I really love that stuff.
It says the link doesn't work for me.
It does for me, and he is showing the bird. Oh no, he's showing Frenzy.
Yeah, you're showing a different movie, dude. What are you?
Frenzy is a Hitchcock film.
Yeah, you're not showing the Blood Feast. I think you're thinking of a. You might either be behind or you're thinking of a different movie.
Oh god, I hated Frenzy so bad when I had to watch it.
And now we have the first Polanski film on our list. We all know that Polanski's an asshole. And that's Repulsion. And this one is sexually tied. It's basically a woman who has homicidal nightmares that are very sexually based, and she eventually starts killing people because she can't get laid.
Roman Polanski, kind of a trash human being, but sometimes some of his movies were good, and I'm
Yes.
so conflicted about that.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I could agree with that. Because the next one that you talk about is Rosemary's Baby, and that's a fucking classic.
And I've never seen it.
I have. It's really good.
I've read the book, but I've
I
never
would
seen it.
highly suggest watching it. It is a classic. It is a classic and quintessential horror movie. This is one of those cases where I'm gonna agree with you when it comes to Polanski. Polanski's a fucking trash human being, but Rosemary's Baby. Woman's pregnant. Like, you know the story. Like, the way he plays it off is so it's so well done. It's so well done that you just, when you first watch it, you don't expect it. If you don't know anything about it, you don't expect it. Like, you don't, it's, I don't want to spoil it for anybody that hasn't seen the movie. Go see it. It's a really good fucking movie. I really, really highly suggest going and watching it. It's one of those ones that you should watch if you are a horror movie fanatic. But that's a great one. The whole culty undertones are great. Yeah, it's like the premise for The Omen, absolutely. And then we have another movie that is absolutely quintessential horror, and that's The Night of the Living Dead. You can't. George Romero is an icon forever for what he created with the Living Dead series. Period.
And the thing is,
yay! Nuggy's here.
Nice.
We got all of them, but Nyx. The only mean is Nyx. Just been listening. I love you too, Nuggies. Now we just need Nyx to come in and say hi.
By the way, The Night of the Living Dead is one of the few actual movies that actually has a black lead character.
Yes, it's one of the few from that time period when it was very taboo. It had an African American lead that was just well done, and he was like, I don't give a fuck about anything.
Not only that, but he had a cool name.
Yeah, like,
I have to say that.
Yeah, it's one of those really good movies. Like, I will tell you that I think the zombie genre has been done to death, but I love Romero's movies. I love them.
Period. And Romero's whole entire idea behind what zombies are is a metaphor.
Oh yeah.
And if you guys don't know what the metaphor is, well, I don't want to spoil it. I'll let THS spoil it if she wants to.
No, go ahead. Go for it.
Oh crap, you're gonna make me.
Yeah.
Consumerism.
I'm a dick. You should already know that. I'm kind of a dick. I'm a sweetheart, but I'm also kind of a dick.
It is a allegory for consumerism. consumerism turns us all into zombies.
It does. It really does. We
That
like
reminds me, I
things.
have to pick up a new PS5 sooner or later.
I don't have one either. I wish. Those things are too fucking expensive for me. Rock and Ruin $5 for my fail. It's okay. It's okay, man. No problem.
It's okay. Just as soon as I clicked the link and it said frenzy, I'm like, oh, you are behind.
You are way behind, my dude. That's all I have for the 60s. So let's finish this off with the 70s. One of the ones that I've got a lot more experience with. I didn't have to go do so much in the way of note taking for.
I don't have to do any notes at all because I'm doing this by ear.
Yeah.
And I have big ears.
I mean, we've got in the 70s the turn of the decade with more and more sex, drugs, rock and roll. Here's where that starts to come in.
And the thing though is with horror movies, if you actually look at each era is defined by whatever's going on in the political scheme or the culture at the time. And well, this in the 70s, it's the first part of it is definitely a lot about free love and drugs.
Yeah.
And then when you get past that, it's more about like hopelessness and stuff like that, and more paranormal and scary shit.
Yeah. More paranormal and scary shit, and a lot more sex. A lot more sex. It's less taboo at this point. We'll start with I'm not gonna start with Vampiros, Lesbos, or Blackula because I don't like to talk about
One's a blaxploitation
movies.
film.
Yeah, both of those are exploitation film. One's a blaxploitation film, and one is just full blown graphic sex conventions and shit on it. We'll start with The Exorcist.
My favorite horror movie of all time.
I'm gonna do I have I don't think I have a I don't think I have a little alert that has to do with. No, I don't. I thought I did. I thought I had an Exorcist donation alert, but I don't.
The Exorcist is actually interesting because it's actually based off a true story.
Yep.
It's based off of, not the actual story itself.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is a fun film.
It's a great film, and it's so fucking cursed. It's like The Omen. Both of them are so fucking cursed. Everybody that had anything to do with this movie had something fucky happen to them.
And the fun part is, with The Exorcist, they use subliminal messaging in it.
Constantly, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it got to the point where people were actually running out of the theaters terrified.
Yes, this is one of those films where people were fainting in the movie theaters. They were running out. I can't say that I blame them. It's a very terrifying movie to this day. This holds the fuck up. I can't say the same thing about the any of the sequels. I can't say anything like that about the sequels, but the first one, holy shit! Like, I think the funniest story that I have when it comes to The Exorcist is with my mother, and I'm in like, I think I'm a freshman in high school, and we're driving to school, and I don't remember what we were joking about. But she literally turns to me and goes, "Your mother sucks cocks in hell." And I just went, what? My head just snapped to look at my mom and was like, where did this come from? I'd never seen The Exorcist at this point. I had no idea. I knew what it was, but I'd never seen the movie. And now looking back at it, I just laughed my ass off. And she said it perfectly with the voice and all. It was the funniest thing.
I think the most uncomfortable scene in all of cinema history is actually in that movie. Yep. I consider it more uncomfortable than anything because it's a little girl and a crucifix and
she's
use your imagination.
she's it's a minor basically putting a cross within her betwixt her legs. We'll go with that. It's not good. It's not good. The spider walk is very creepy. And I love the fact they turned it into a wrestling move.
Bray Wyatt.
Bray Wyatt, yep.
For the win.
Yep, for the win. Absolutely. I can get rid of this and just bring this up.
But everything about the movie, like, you guys know that you can, if you pause the movie in certain times, you can actually see faces reflected in shiny objects because the creator of the movie actually hid images and subliminal messages throughout the whole entire movie to play with your subconscious so that it scares you even more.
Yep.
I could talk about The Exorcist for 3 hours straight.
Oh yeah. So we're gonna move on because we're gonna talk about this the entire day, and we're almost at 2 hours.
Yeah.
But the next movie we have is The Last House on the Left. It's another exploitation movie, but I think it's done well, and it's like it's the start of the whole woman gets brutally attacked and raped and then gets revenge on her attackers. I don't like the genre it started. I don't like the genre it started. But I can see where this one is liked by the way it was made. That's all I can really say about it. I don't want to get too much into it because it's one of those movies that it makes you very uncomfortable. But
I've never seen the original. I only seen the remake.
Yeah.
Because my wife is a huge horror fan, so there's a movie that is coming up that if I don't get right, she's going to come out here and start poking me in the back of the head.
We also have The Wicker Man in 1973. Not the one with Nicolas Cage. This is the first one. Yes, the bees. The bees.
The bees.
The bees. The bees. I think this one's a lot better done. I think I prefer the original to Nicolas Cage's, because Nicolas Cage is just so gaudy and cartoony that it takes away from the beauty that is the culty, creepy factor that they have in the first Wicker Man.
And I think it helps that the original Wicker Man had Christopher Lee in it.
Yes. It's another wonderful Christopher Lee movie. You gotta love it. It's so good. It's iconic. I say that a lot, but I mean, we're talking about horror cinema. There's gonna be a lot of iconic movies we're gonna talk about. And the next one is just as iconic because it started the slasher genre. It did, period. It was the first slasher movie. Black Christmas.
Which is weird because we got into a debate when it came to horror genres in one of my classes on which actually started it. This one or another one that comes out the same year that I'm not going to name, but let's face it, that one's But yeah.
I'm gonna go with Black Christmas as the one it's the original, period. Because it's so well done and it's so fucking creepy. Like, you can't deny how creepy it is for somebody, and I don't think it's been as well done before this point, where it's a slasher movie and it's a holiday slasher movie.
I've never actually seen the original Black Christmas as well, unfortunately.
You need to.
I know I need to look at it.
It's good. It's really
I
good.
have to I'll watch it sooner or later.
There's multiple Black Christmas remakes. There's two.
Yeah, there's two. I seen the first remake of it. I didn't see the second one. The first remake was
all right. I don't really want to touch the second one, honestly. From what I've heard about it, it's very preachy, and I'm not a fan of preachy.
From what I understand from my wife, it's very SJW.
Yes, it's preachy, and I'm not into that. Not into that. I don't mind when movies have a message. I like movies that have a message. I just don't like ones that shove it down your fucking throat. And I think that's how a lot of people are when it comes to a lot of things.
Same.
I don't know much about the next one, or the one that it's listed after that, but the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Which is the one that we got into a debate with, which came first, Black Christmas or Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's like, who cares?
No,
Leatherface is cool, but
I would say that Black Christmas was the first one. I think it came out before Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which makes sense.
I think it did too, but I think that Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because it had a low budget, was filmed first, but I don't know.
No, I don't think that matters. I think that if one came out before the other, it's already the first.
I still think Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, is a lot better than the remake.
Absolutely. I mean, the remake has its merits, but the first one is just, it's a kind of unsettling terror that you can't really deny.
And was also inspired by Ed Gein.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was. It was very much inspired by Ed Gein. There's a lot of movies that are inspired by Ed Gein. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's amazing how this one serial killer, well, technically, I don't even know if he can be considered, but he is, could inspire so many iconic characters.
Yeah, he is. A serial killer is two or more. Technically, it's two or more murders between different time periods. So yeah, he's at least two.
And Leatherface is literally pretty much an allegory of Ed Gein.
Yes, it is. Yes, he is. Absolutely.
And apparently his real name is Bubba Sawyer.
Bubba. Bubba.
That's actually coming from the original creators, by the way.
I'm gonna say that the next one is probably, I would say, the birds did the nature attacks thing well, but I think Jaws did it a little bit better, in my opinion.
And you want to know something interesting? Guess who was a student of Alfred Hitchcock?
Yep.
Steven Spielberg.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Dun, dun, dun. Yes.
If you guys go back and watch my Maneaters, the Jersey Shore Shark Attack, I actually talk a little bit about Jaws.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go
too much into it. I know I'm gonna go nuts over the next one, so we won't go too into it. But I love how Jaws is done, simply because it doesn't need to show you too much of the monster for you to be freaked the fuck out. It shows you the monster, but not very much. And the character work is fantastic.
And while you're talking about the next one, I'm going to go get a drink.
Go for it. But our next one, and I don't know why it's considered a horror movie, because I don't see it as a horror movie, but Rocky Horror motherfucking Picture Show. Rocky Horror Picture Show is one of my fucking favorite movies, especially favorite musicals movies of all time. Like, Tim Curry is so good in everything he does. Everything. Even in the movie Legend, that was a fucking mess of a movie, he was good in. Oh, Tim Curry, I love him so fucking much. Why does he have to be so good? I love everything about Rocky Horror. I've loved it since I was a teenager. I watched it when I was like 14 for the first time, because one of my friends in junior high told me about it, and I'd never seen it before, and I just kind of waited for my parents to leave and watched the, I think it was the 25th anniversary DVD. And oh man, I love everything about Rocky Horror. It's so good, but I think it's too much of a comedy to be a horror, in my opinion. So
there's actually something interesting about Rocky Horror. Meatloaf is in it.
Well, yeah. You know why Meatloaf was in it?
Because Meatloaf rocks.
No, actually, Meatloaf got the job and was supposed to be both, was initially both, not Dr. Frankenfurter, what's his name? He was both Eddie and Dr. Scott. And he was really pissed when Dr. Scott was taken from him because that was one of his roles. But Meatloaf got that job specifically because of Hot Patootie. The director and the writer of the show couldn't figure out how to get all of the lyrics that he wrote out into the song, and Meatloaf did it. And he went, "You're coming in."
The only other thing about Rocky Horror.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say I actually know the time warp dance.
Everybody knows.
Yeah, but I had to take it for class.
Everybody knows it. Like, duh. Yeah, Robert Paulson. He is also Riff Raff. The guy who plays Riff Raff is literally the guy that wrote the whole thing.
That is.
I could go on. I could go on and on. I could go on and on about Rocky Horror.
The only thing that I really know about Rocky Horror is there was a lot of my friends that went to showings of it and then went to Denny's afterwards.
That's a thing. That's a thing, and I'm not shocked. I think the next one I'll kind of touch on is the Stepford Wives. I love this one just because it takes the whole this looks like a picture perfect life, but underneath it, if you fuck up, you're dead. Like,
pretty much.
I love that. I love the fact that it's a bunch of guys trying to make this perfect utopia of like the 1950s. And before that, I love that. And I love the remake with Nicole Kidman. I don't care. I love Nicole Kidman. I don't give a shit. I love it.
Nicole Kidman is bae. I don't care.
Oh my god.
I love Nicole Kidman, and I hate the fact that she married Tom Cruise at one point.
I hate that too, but now she's with Keith Urban, and she's happy, and that makes me happy. That makes me happy for
Indeed.
her. After that is Carrie. Gotta love fucking Carrie, man. That movie is so well done, and you feel so bad for Carrie the entire time, and you absolutely root for her when she just wrecks everybody's shit and kills everybody, including her mother.
Yeah, and it's one of the first Stephen King movies.
Yep.
And Stephen King hated it.
Oh yeah, he did. But I'll bet you what he hated more was the remake.
Actually, no, he liked the remake.
What?
Yeah.
Ugh. Well, this is also coming from the guy who had a crack-filled bender and made a movie about a killer truck. Which
I watched when I was really, really stoned, so it made sense to me.
It's really bad. It's really, really bad.
I know, but it's Stephen King. You still have to love him.
You don't have to love him. The next one we'll talk about is The Omen. Ooh, The Omen. The Omen, the original, I think the first two were amazing. Amazing movies. I didn't like the third one. That was just my opinion on it.
The Omen gave me nightmares when I was 12.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. I did it for you, Damien!
No, it was the pane of glass decapitating the guy.
That too. Maximum Overdrive. There you go, Revcast. I have to review that one at some point. I have to do a review on that.
That truck had a face of the Green Goblin on it, by the way.
Yes, it did. It's really bad. It's really bad, but I can't. Of course, he had to do it at some point. He was really fucked up. He was really fucked up at that time. But The Omen is another one like The Exorcist, where like everybody involved had some bad shit happen to him afterwards. You could say it was an omen.
Mm-hmm.
A bad one.
It's not the most famous cursed movie. The most famous cursed movie comes in the 80s.
Yeah.
And that's the one I'm actually going to cover in, I think, February, according to my schedule. But it's one of the ones that are really cursed.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cursed movies in that time period. But yeah, it's pretty fucking insane.
When you mess with the devil, you're going to actually get freaking cursed.
Yeah. After that is The Hills Have Eyes, which my husband loves. I love the concept of it too. Although you could say that you hate the protagonists because they're so fucking annoying.
I've actually never seen that one.
Another one you should watch.
I know. I suck when it comes to 70s. I've only watched the most famous ones.
I know. I know. Yeah, I'm assuming it's probably Poltergeist is what he's talking about.
Yeah, I'm talking about Poltergeist.
Poltergeist is absolutely fucking. Ew. It's scary as shit, but I'm not gonna lie. I kind of liked watching the protagonist family kind of get wrecked because they were so annoying and insufferable. Um, 1977 is Suspiria. I haven't seen this one. I know I should.
I have.
I know I should. It's a good movie from what I understand, and it's extremely influential. But
Have you know how you really like kind of bloodier movies?
yeah,
It's in there. Trust
nice,
me. And
nice.
it's got a mystery to it, and it's actually beautifully shot, and it's by can't remember his first name, but it's Argento is his last name.
Dario Argento.
Dario Argento,
Yeah,
who is
he's amazing.
who he's amazing, and you're going to see a lot more of his work in the 80s.
Yeah.
But
he has an eye fetish too.
yeah, and you get the eye fetish in this too.
Yep, you get some of the eye fetish stuff in it. It's really good. The visuals look fantastic from the clips I've seen.
Yes, it's basically it's. I don't want to give anything away. I'll just say that.
I wouldn't. I know what the movie's about. I just haven't seen it firsthand. Then we have The Dawn of the Dead, which is fantastic. I mean, that's another that's the one where he goes full blown to the rampant consumerism thing, and I love the way that it's played off.
And it's a lot more gory.
It's a lot gorier. Oh yeah, 100%, 100%.
Isn't that the one with the guy that yells "choke on him"?
I don't remember.
It's either that one or the next one that he does in the Dead series.
Possible. But my favorite one is later, definitely later. It's in the 80s. Then we have Halloween. What can we say about Halloween that already hasn't been said?
Which, if I get this wrong, I'm gonna get it poked in the back of the head.
One of the most iconic. Have a good one, Renegator.
Well, I can tell you some things that are interesting about it.
Go for it.
You know that scene where she's in the closet and he breaks through with a knife?
Mm-hmm.
That's a real knife.
Oh wow. That's probably
in fact
smart.
they used a lot of real knives for a lot of the scenes, and they continued doing that up until Halloween H2O. But Jamie Lee Curtis, obviously the daughter of Janet Leigh, this is her breakout role.
Oh yeah.
And she is amazing. And by the way, I'm a huge Jamie Lee Curtis fan.
So am I.
She's in everything that I've seen her in. I just am like, you are wife forever. I don't care how old you get.
Yeah, she's great. I love her so much. She's so versatile.
But the other thing that's interesting is if you actually read the script of it, Michael Myers at first wasn't the name. The name was the Shape. He's the boogeyman. Shape.
Yeah.
So, and of course, William Shatner mask.
Yep. Actually, Dev, she's not the original Scream Queen, but she is one of the first.
She's the original one of the original Scream. I think Janet Leigh predates her with the Scream Queen.
Yep. Her mom is the original Scream Queen, I think.
Yeah, she is actually.
There are some that are further back in the 50s where you could kind of start seeing that, but she's definitely an iconic Scream Queen, not the original though.
I think the first time they used the word Scream Queen was with Janet Leigh, but I could be wrong.
Maybe, I'm not totally sure. But it's fitting that her mother was the first one. If you want.
I know Oracle. Sorry.
That's fine. We are getting.
I played Dead by Daylight. So.
We're kind of running into the 2-hour mark, and I wanted to try and keep it under that. So we'll go through the next like 3 that are important to talk about, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
Alien, obviously, absolutely fantastic movie with Sigourney Weaver heading it. I love everything Sigourney Weaver does. She comes off as an absolute fucking badass in this movie, and the Xenomorph, iconic movie villain, iconic creepy fucking monster.
Yeah.
there's so much that I could say about it that I mean, it would take forever. So I gotta keep moving. Do you have anything you want to say about Alien before I move on?
No, but I have a feeling with the next one I might actually have to say something.
Amityville?
Yeah.
I like the original Amityville. I don't like the ones after it. They just get fucking the same thing over and over and over again. But the original Amityville is pretty creepy, and I enjoy that one.
I enjoy it if you realize that even though it's quote unquote based on a true story, the true story was actually kind of made up.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's
I'll
based
just
on it's based on something that happened, but we all know that it wasn't a possession. It wasn't a possession at all.
No, it was just I I don't like the Amityville horror movies. Sorry.
The first Phantasm film came out that same year. And Phantasm is a good series. I love how just dreamlike it is. It's got some of the most inventive kills that I've seen. But most of those movies are in the 80s, and that's when, like, after Phantasm 2 came out is when things were really big for that. And then finally, When a Stranger Calls. This is the one that my mom says is, like, the scariest movie to her, is When a Stranger Calls. The calls are coming from inside the house is fucking creepy. Regardless. And if it involves kids, like, have you checked on the children? Oof. Some of the most iconic horror lines.
I actually thought that one came out in the 80s.
79.
Wow.
Yep. That one's been done multiple times too, but the original one is still by far the creepiest to me. Just in concept and execution.
I think a lot of the 70s movies were a lot more creepy than a lot of the other movies that come after.
I think because the 70s were a little more grounded and down to earth in that comparison. Because for us now, our fears are much different in comparison to what they were back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, or not the 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Prior to that, it wasn't as much of a religious fear anymore. It was fear of other things. And geez, the 70s is probably my favorite of these three in era-wise, just because it hits some chords that I didn't identify with as much with the other movies in the 50s and 60s, but all of the movies that I've mentioned are pretty important in cinema history, and you can't go without talking about them. Do you have anything closing you want to say about everything we went over, Knox?
To be completely honest, out of all of the decades, the most that I know out of all three of those is the 70s and Hitchcock films. But I just can't wait till you do the 80s, because the 80s is a fun time for horror.
Yeah, I'll be doing the 80s and 90s next weekend. And then closing it out with the 2000s and modern stuff on Halloween.
Oh, that's going to be fun.
Yeah, it is going to be fun.
I'm going to literally, you're going to be basically my church for the next couple of weeks.
I'll try to preach plenty, but thank you for coming out and hanging out with me, Knox. Go ahead and show your stuff. I've already got your links in the description, but where can everybody find you at?
You can mostly find me on YouTube at Knox Archive, obviously, and on Twitter at Knox Archive.
Awesome.
Right now, I'm preparing to do a video called The Legend of Resurrection Mary, which is going to feature Kat's voice in it.
Woo! We gotta get the Cat Girl in. I love it. I love Cat.
And then afterwards, I have Ghostly Images, which is going to be a look at a bunch of different ghost photos. And then I'm going to end Halloween with a live ghost, well, not live because I'm filming it next weekend, but a ghost hunt where I try to actually figure out if this photo that I took a long time ago actually is creepy photo ghost thing, or if it's something that can be explained.
Nice. I can't wait to see all of that stuff. If you guys aren't subbed to Knox, please go do that. Again, his links are in the description. Rock and Ruin said 5, love the stream. GG, thank you so much, Rock and Ruin, for the support. I really appreciate it. If you guys aren't already subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more coming. If you can and you aren't already, and you'd like to be a member or a Patreon, I have my Patreon link. Click the little join button to become a member. I am going to start planning doing mute horror movie viewings with my members and my Patreons starting mid next month, I think. I haven't necessarily picked out what movie we're going to look at yet, but that is the plan. I might do something that's a little bit safer for Rock and Ruin, since he says he doesn't like horror movies for the most part, and I would like to have him involved since he's the first channel member. But I'm planning on doing that, so if you guys want to be involved with that, that'd be fantastic. That's how you would do that. I have a Creepypasta Iceberg Level 4 video that's coming, and I've already talked about what I'm going to be doing the next couple of weekends to finish off the horror movie cinema arc. Thank you guys for coming out and hanging out with us. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Sweet nightmares. And we're off.